Hi friends, welcome to Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'm Jenny and we're gardening here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7. Today is a really hot day. Like so much of the United States right now, we're having a heat wave. The temperature has gone up and down and up and down, but today we're expected to be a high on the thermometer of 95 with a heat index over 100, and it's humid and it's hot and it's a clear sky. So I want to talk today about safely gardening in the heat. And while I'm at it, I'll be putting in some plants that I have hanging out in my yard, waiting to get into the ground for the last few weeks. So come along with me and let's talk about safe ways to do your gardening in the hot summer heat. So whether you live in a dry climate or in a humid climate, if the temperature is soaring, you really have to take good care of yourself and be self-aware about how you're feeling so that you don't put yourself into any sort of situation of harm due to the high heat. So the first thing I want to mention is properly hydrating yourself. Drink water, drink water. This is something for every day of your life, not just the summer heat, but make sure that you have enough water in your body. So I have my glass of cold water right here beside me, and when I'm gardening in the summer, I always have a glass of cold water. The next thing is protect your skin. If you're gardening outside in the sun like I am, or even in the shade, because you can get too much sun from even through dappled shade, make sure you have sunscreen on. Every time I come out, I put on the sunscreen, I put on the bug spray. Garden in the morning when the sun isn't as high, when the heat isn't as high, and the humidity can be managed. Or come out in the evening after the sun has mostly gone down in those evening twilight hours. And if you can't avoid gardening in the midday, try to do your gardening in the shade if you can at all. Speaking of shade, I do try to always keep myself in the shady spaces when I'm gardening. I do that all the time just from the management of the sunburn situation, but it's not always possible depending on what the chores are and what time available you have. But if you can, stay in the shade all the time. Move around your yard as the sun moves. Another thing that I love to do is actually just wear clothing that can get wet. And sometimes I even wear my swimming suit. And then when I'm out working in the garden, I keep my hose along with me and I spray myself down. Having wet clothes cools me off a lot better than just drying myself off or drinking cold water. If I'm wearing wet clothes, my whole body feels so much cooler. So I generally wear clothes that I can get wet and that can keep me cool as the breeze comes by. Those are my main tips for staying cool as I'm gardening. Of course, I do have a handkerchief that I carry around with me, and sometimes I keep it in my pocket. Sometimes I put it around my neck, and sometimes I actually wear it like a headband around my forehead and keeps the sweat from dripping down into my eyes. And then the last thing is just make sure that you're listening to your body, and that when you're tired, take a break. When you're too hot, take a break. If you feel your face flushing and you're just not feeling good, sit down, take a break, go inside, stop gardening. Just be aware of how you're feeling. I'm going to put up on the screen some signs of heat stroke or heat exhaustion so that you can be aware of those, so that if you feel those things, make sure you take care of yourself right away. Or if you're gardening with a friend or a family member or a neighbor or whatever, if you see these symptoms in another person, please take steps to care for that person and get that person cooled off. Okay, so that's enough of Jenny's lecture on taking care of yourself in the heat. So I hope to demonstrate for you today some of these methods that I'm using. So first of all, here we are in the shade. Let me talk to you about the plants that I'm going to be planting today. Now, why do I have a whole table full of plants that I haven't gotten into the ground yet? Well, us gardeners, we tend to, have lack of self-control when we're at the garden center or maybe we're going to Lowe's for trash bags and we come home with clearance plants. I don't know. Has that ever happened to you? It certainly happens to me. This is Graceful White Gara from Monrovia. It says $4.98, but I paid $2 for each of these. And these they want direct sun, 6 or more hours. They will get 12 to 18 inches tall and wide. They bloom in the summer, and they're hardy to -10 Fahrenheit, which I believe is zone 6. So I'm in zone 7, so these will be great. 5 of those. Now, clearance plants, they generally get put on clearance because either they're done blooming and customers don't want to buy plants that are done blooming, or because for some reason there's been some weather-related or water-related damage to them. So it could be that they had a scorching day and they didn't get watered enough, or it could be that, especially this happens in the early spring, they had a freeze overnight that they didn't withstand very well. It could be any number of reasons, but generally, if you can see any sort of new growth down at the bottom of a plant, like this right here, then you can be reasonably sure that this plant is not dead, that it really will do well if you bring it home and care for it. So that's why I bought these 5. My next set of clearance plants are these 3. These came in gallon pots. These are penstemon. This is pink rock candy penstemon. It wants full sun. I did not pay $9.98. I believe I paid $4 for each of these. And so they want direct sun, 6 or more hours, and these will grow to be about a foot tall and about 2 feet wide. So they'll be low and wide, and these are hardy down to -20, and so that's zone 5. I'm in zone 7, so we'll be just fine. And these particular plant specimens, they are doing just fine. These are going to bloom again, sparsely, but still, I'll get a little bit of beauty out of these. This one especially has a lot of buds coming along. And so these are going to be just fine. And my last clearance plant of the day is this one. This is a climbing hydrangea, and it looks kind of worse for the wear, doesn't it? It certainly did dry out, but when you remove those and take a deeper look, you can see that there's a lot of new growth on this plant. Climbing hydrangeas are, this is Hydrangea anomala petiolaris, and it will have, when it's mature, it'll have white blooms on it about this time of year. This is what it'll look like when it's mature. And my plan is to put this on the chain link fence. Okay, so you can see in here, inside the plant, there are dried up leaves. And I think in the nursery, it missed a watering or two, and maybe it was scorched in the hot sun. And so it browned up, and so they put it on clearance, but it's gonna be just fine. For example, you see this leaf is scorched, but right behind it, there's all of these new leaves coming out. Lots of new growth on the tips and so forth. So this is going to be a really nice plant to have. I think the tag said it was $20, but I'm pretty sure I got it for $8. So that's a really good deal. All right, and then I have these plants over here, which are not clearance. They're just things I bought at the nursery and haven't planted yet. First of all, this is my Passionate Kisses rose. This is a mail order rose that I recently got. Oh, we're getting some sort of leaf miner damage on it already. I need to spray. But anyway, it came as just stalks. There were no leaves on it when it arrived in the mail order. And since I've had it, I've kept it watered, and now it's got lots of beautiful growth on it. I have one lemon coral sedum from Proven Winners. You can't go wrong with that. I had bought that to maybe put into my fairy gardens, and I didn't use it there, so I have it left over. This is a fennel plant. I picked this up at the herb section of a garden center one day, and I'm just going to put this out in the garden and use it as a decorative perennial. I think it is hardy in my zone, so I'm just going to put it out there, and then I'll have this frothy foliage plant. All right, I have an asparagus fern. This is just a wonderful house plant. I'm probably going to plant this in a pot so that I can bring it in the winter. I was going to put this in my fairy garden, but I didn't have room for it, so it's just here extra, so I'll make a house plant out of that. I have this pulmonaria, moonshine variety. It's got really pretty thick cluster of leaves on it, and it's just a nice shade plant. It does have some blue flowers in the spring. Here's the data on it. It's part shade to shade, 15 inches tall and 20 inches wide at maturity, and it's hardy down to -25, so zones 4 through 9. And yeah, so you grow this mostly for the leaves. It does put out flowers in the spring that are blue and purpley colored, but it gives you summer interest with this beautiful variegated foliage. And the leaves are pretty thick, and I think pretty sure that they're resistant to deer. And then 2 basil plants. This is Greek columnar basil. And I'm growing this ornamentally. I'm just going to put this in somewhere as a nice ornamental green accent somewhere. Not sure where. Okay, so I would really like to get all of the clearance plants into the ground and well situated today, and as many of these other plants into the ground as I possibly can. So it's going to be a big job, but I'm going to take precautions and try to get these done today in a safe manner in this heat. Yeah, I do have some shade I could be putting some of these in, so I'm going to start with the shady areas first. Okay, I've placed all my plants into the spots where I think I'm going to be planting them into the ground. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and do the shady ones first, and then I'll deal with the rest of them that are in full sun. And that way I'll just protect myself the most. This particular location right here is only going to be getting sunnier and sunnier as time goes on and the sun comes over the house. So I'm going to do this one first. You might remember that I planted a Mary Rose right here. Oh, you know what? She is starting to recover. She sat here and looked terrible for so long I thought she was a goner. See how many dead stems there are? But look, she is putting out new growth there and there. So, oh, and there. Okay, now I'm in a quandary because I was going to put Passionate Kisses here in Mary Rose's spot because she wasn't doing anything, but now she's doing something. What to do? Should I baby along Mary right here and find Passionate Kisses another spot? Yeah, I think I have to do that. Okay, so then where should I put Passionate Kisses? I've got dahlias here. They won't necessarily be there next year. Those are from seed, and I'll be digging up their tubers and rearranging them. I've got the fairy rose right here, which I love, and she will stay. And I just put in my incredible hydrangea right here. She's little but mighty, and she's growing. That's a peony that I transplanted earlier this month, or I guess in June I did that. Those are 3 black and blue salvias. They are perennial in my zone, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to stay there. Let's see, and then I have my vegetables. I've got my spaghetti squash down in front. Over on the left is the zucchini, and on that trellis is a cucumber. Everything else you see in here is either weeds or wild violets that I let grow because I like the way they look in the spring. So where should I put? This is the yellow knockout rose that I don't like, and this is the other yellow knockout rose that I don't like. Where should I put this rose? Well, folks, I think I've decided on a location for my new rose that is going to have a little bit of a futuristic view because I will be taking out this yellow knockout rose and this yellow knockout rose, but not this season and not today. I'm just not prepared to do that. It's going to be a big digging job, and yeah. So what I'm going to do is I am going to plant this new rose kind of right here. Kind of at the tip of this hump on the grass. And the reason I'm going to do that is because we do have a long-range plan that this grass edge is going to come in more of a gentle sweeping curve around this way in the very near future, maybe this fall or next spring. So this grass area right here is going to be gone. And so if I plant something right up against the grass right there, it will be the start of convincing me to take that grass border away sooner rather than later. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Let me think on it another minute. Yeah, I'm still thinking about it, and I still think that's what I'm going to do. One thought was to just take out one of these yellow roses today and put my new rose in that spot. But I don't want to do that, and here's why. I think I'm keeping this red knockout rose. I'm definitely keeping this fairy rose. And if Mary grows over here and this red rose stays, then I'll have too many roses in a row. So what I really want is roses kind of scattered around and then filled in with other flowering shrubs and perennials and annuals for a nice, beautiful mixed border. I don't want too many roses right in a row. So I'm going to leave this yellow rose here for this season and that one for this season, but next season I'm taking those out. They'll be replaced with either a flowering shrub or some sort of long blooming perennial. And so then I'll have a rose here and this red one, that's okay. And then I'll have the fairy rose, and then over here I'll have these two. So the roses will be more spread out. Yep, that's my plan. Passionate Kisses, you're going right there. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining me here at Harmony Hills Home and Garden. It's getting hotter, but I stayed cool. I was able to do almost all of my work in the complete shade, and I was wet with the hose, and I had water in my glass. I took breaks and generally just moved slow so that I didn't get overheated or overworked. I hope that you are also staying safe in the heat in this summer gardening season. If you have tips for us about how to stay safe in the heat, please let us know. Put them in the comments down below. We'd love to learn and share from each other. I'm sure I forgot tips. And of course, the number one tip is if it's too hot, don't go outside. You know yourself the best, and you know what's too hot for you. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to our channel. We're doing all kinds of home gardening projects all throughout the summer, and we'd love to have you be part of our community here. Thank you again for watching. I hope to see you again soon in another video. Bye-bye.